start Terry, would you mind maybe using internal or something just to ping Ramona and see if she's going to be able to join us?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so this is what we're going to do today. It's going to be a working session. And some time ago, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Some time ago, we discussed the need that we would to develop a maturity model and then an assessment method to see what are the capabilities for an organization to execute and change. So Scott offered this template that was used by in the past, for some projects and efforts and applications. Then we posted the spreadsheet and invited people to comment, and Kesra provided a lot of comments, but it seemed like that it was not the most effective way to get people's feedback. So what we did now is organize for today a mural session for everybody to be able to contribute. And I'll just put a link, give me just a second. I will put the link to this mural in the chat, and then we'll, there is Ramona.
Good.
Is the job here in the job career fair?
I think it's March 26th.
Good morning. I am so sorry. I was
Okay.
Trying to multitask, so I got to jump off.
Yeah.
So
we're not at the job fair.
Yeah. So I put in the chat line the link to this mural page, and I had sent out instructions, but I'll just go through it very kind of step by step to make sure that everybody can provide their input. If you remember the first category here, there were 5: leadership and communication, change process, and so forth. So this is the page for this top category, leadership and vision. These are the statements that were there originally. Then there are some comments from Kesra. Those comments have been implemented in this mural. So let me just clear this. I see somebody's already there. So when you sign in, you will see probably this page. And in the corner, in the lower right corner, you can slide this to make it bigger. Or so if you zoom in, you will see that here it'll show you can manipulate here to focus on a part of it, because there's more part of the screen, because there's more it's easier to see, and you can also move with your mouse. So here are these first two. These are the first two. This is the first, second. These are the statements that were in that spreadsheet. So what we're going to do is you can provide comments here, and in the how should I say? In the on the left side of the screen here, there is something that you at the top that looks like a page with a corner turned up, and if you click on that, you will get a menu like this to pop up, which means that you can then just click on one of these sticky notes and drag it over here, and then you can type in here. Okay. Scott, could you get people?
I took care of it.
I did.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. So if you want to, you can then, zoom in a little bit more here with the plus. So you can just focus here and you can add your name and just add a comment. You can make it bigger. You could increase the letter of this, the size of the letters, make it smaller, and you can here move it around. So suggested thing is that you could have a yellow sticky note if you have a question about a certain statement. A white sticky note somewhere at the bottom, additional statements. You can put here, they said, I think that there's something, because we have 7 statements, we need to have an 8th one. This way you can suggest it. There is a blue sticky note if you're saying, I want to modify it, and a red that said, let's delete it. Even if you don't follow this color scheme, it's totally okay. It's totally okay. We'll sort it out, so don't have to worry about too much about that. So you can, so right now we're in this 1.1, and I'm gonna click on this one and I'm gonna, get rid of it. I'm just looking for, there it is. So in the next few minutes, you can go around these things. Right now we're on this one, so you can start adding in these sticky notes here with your comments and for any question. So yes, Scott.
Yeah, just to note that this is one of, I think it's 5 categories. So there are other questions than what you're looking at right here. The other thing is that when you would be completing this assessment, you would have already, or basically the organization would have already identified the improvement or the change that they're interested in doing. So this isn't to come up with what the change is. This is basically what some background that's needed and assessments that's needed to say what's the readiness for change, once you've already identified the change that you want to make.
Okay, so everybody, you can go at it.
Have you already talked about what the scale, is there a scale associated to each one? Is it like on a scale of 1 to 5? Or is that the kind of suggestion you're looking for?
There would be a scale on 1 to 5 for each one of these. That's correct.
From like not ready to ready kind of thing?
Yeah, from like strongly disagree to strongly agree.
Okay, got it. Okay, great, thanks.
Sure. So the you can start. You don't have to start at the first question. You can just navigate around the page, and please, if you have an issue, repost the link. Okay, let me repost the link. Give me just a second. Yeah, because the link doesn't appear for somebody who joins after I added it to the chat line.
And if you need Cello to go back through how to do this, just raise your hand or speak up.
Yeah,
he'll go back through it, because if you haven't done this before, it's not completely straightforward.
yes. So yeah, so just let me know if you have any questions.
Excuse me, Cello, I have a question. Would you please briefly mention again the color scheme, the yellow?
You know
blue?
what? Forget about it. Don't worry about the color schemes. Just choose the whatever color. And somebody's moving the text up there. I didn't lock it, but it's not a tragedy. But you can find the text box on the left side of your screen here, and you see here, and that's when you're going to get the sticky notes. So don't worry about the color. I don't want to make this too complicated. So you can, again, just click on one of these, drag it over here, and when you're zoomed, and then you start typing, and then you type somewhere else, and it'll be there. If you want to get rid of it, you can you know, delete it later if you like.
So
So you
again, you
can-
can just put in a question, or you can say, I like this the way it is, or you can propose a change, or you can say, let's not do this. Or the last one is if there's something else you'd like to add.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I was, whenever I dropped this damn thing, sorry about my language here. I dropped it to where it doesn't belong. So you can choose any of these colors. Don't worry about the color scheme. We'll get it all sorted out. And okay, I will put this back where it is. So I will also make it more difficult for you to be moving these things around. Okay, so now to make it a little bit more a little bit more stable, these things, so you don't end up moving them.
Yeah. So you can just grab one of those stickies that you see over there and then move it over there and put in.
Yeah, so don't, I can see Mike Montes where you are. Don't worry about this color scheme. Don't worry about it. Just use any of these sticky notes that you'd like. You can use a 5x3, 3x3 circular one, whatever you'd like. Okay, that's excellent. But what you've done is you've moved this one. So I'll move it back because it's just an example. What you would want to do, if you want to use one of these, you would right click and then duplicate. And then you could move it here if you want to use one of those as a template. But you can also get a white one here and drag it from there. And if you double click on this one, then you can change it. Does that make sense? If you'd like, oh, excellent, excellent. Somebody is.
Yep, good question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question. And so that's.
Yeah, it's a duplicate. You're right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I got him from the spreadsheet, so I mean, we're totally.
Yeah, no, it's in 1.1 and 1.4 are the same thing. So somebody noticed that.
There is a comment, does the vision align with the organization's strategic plan? We originally had that in the thing, but then we would have to ask, do you have a strategic plan? Do you know about the strategic plan? And so it is if that's the case, because if we ask them, you know, the question, we may need to ask more than one question. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But there's no wrong answers here. So we're just trying to get the, you know, the feedback and any improvements that occur to you.
Even if it opens up a can, it may be worth the questions.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, and absolutely. I think when we used this for workforce, the folks that put things that opened up a can of worms actually got us really far along, because those discussions actually helped us to flesh out a lot of information, good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a straw man, and I see people are starting to you know, add things. So we'll just hang around. We have more questions, four more questions, but that's what we were gonna do That was our plan for today. And by the way, the link will remain active. And if you want to come back to this page later on, you can just use that.
And I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it on time, but my first question is, what is the end goal of this? Like, what are these questions aimed at accomplishing?
Yes, we have a methodology. Does somebody mind if I make this one just a little bit
Smaller, yeah.
a little bit smaller after you're done with it? So, oh, I see. Okay, let me see. We didn't mean for that to disappear.
That's okay. I'm working it. I was just trying to see what I
Uh-oh.
wrote because it decreased this the
Oh,
font.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stay
put
out
it
of
back.
it. I'll
Thank
stay out of it.
So Cello or Ramona, you may want to speak to that question of why are we doing this? What's it aimed at?
Yes, yes.
Protecting?
I was trying to multitask, which is horrible idea. The reason that we're doing this is because we have a methodology that's consistent with whether we're trying to improve processes, a workforce issue, or the technology, or even change management. That the first action in that is to define a maturity model. What does it mean? How are we going to measure if we're doing well or not doing well? And then we would have a tool that would help us understand where we are on the scale. So this is really about assessing the maturity of capability for change. Is the in an organization? Is the organization, what are its capabilities to implement change?
So the other groups, would have looked at a business process or technology or workforce issues and say, here are things that we want to improve. And this is like, what's your readiness to do it, to change and to make that improvement. That's what it's really aimed at.
It's starting to look a bit more colorful. And if you have general comments that are not related to question, there's a place at the bottom that says place for general comments. You can drag anything you want there, like too many questions, whatever.
We get some blue circles on here. It's going to look like a Wonder Bread package.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And each of you got a interesting nickname for this exercise.
I guess, is this a general readiness, or is it readiness like if you're about prepping for a specific change? Because I guess one of my thoughts would be, is there awareness among employees?
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a real good question. And there are some questions, other categories that we haven't gotten to that get into some of the employee engagement, but it would be a specific change that's been identified, a specific improvements that's been identified. It's not just general readiness in the utility to do change of any kind. It's more once you've identified the change.
Sure.
And actually that was one of Kesra's comments and improvement where she rephrased some of these to say this change, referring, so it would be clear that it's general, it's referring to mostly to a specific change. For the change, you'd be assembling a group that's or let's say stakeholders to make that change and the improvements, and you're assessing with their input, how ready are you to make that change? So Cello, it's kind of a question for you is, did you want to, like say stop at each one of these 5 categories and discuss it, or do you want to go through this and get the input and then come back next time and talk about it? It's kind of
what I was hoping is that we would finish at least 1 or 2 of these, and Ramona can chime in, and then provide a link to other pages so that
Yeah,
once the people, sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, go ahead. I think it would be great if we could go through ones so that everyone will kind of have an example of what the exercise should look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can give them links for the other pages, and they can do it at any time.
Right. So, so the first assessment question, I guess, is there's a common vision and compelling rationale for this change. Are we identifying the change? We changed it to this change, but like the question before, I think one of the questions should be, are you aware of the change that's being attempted or implemented? Have you been made aware of what that change is? Yeah. So that before you go through the rest of this, if you say, no, I don't know what you're talking about, why am I asking you all the other questions?
Yeah.
But you would know already that, for example, you're going to improve the CIP process, and you've identified some specific changes for that, or in workforce that you're going to address employee engagement because people are feeling like they're not engaged. So is there a, common vision and compelling rationale for this change? And you would have kind of gone over with this group kind of the basics of what's being proposed to be changed, and get there, and they'd be responding, are you ready for the change here, and for this specific change? So you would know what the change is that's being proposed. If you're not aware, then obviously you've got some work to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I mean, are people getting that? Is that clear? Because Charlie, you asked that question too, if it was a specific change or was it change overall that we were talking about. And, we're talking about, let's say in your organization, you've identified, a specific thing that you want to improve, and a work process that you want to improve, or technology that you want to improve, or deal with better communication with employees on the workforce side or something. So it would be a specific change or group of changes that you're proposing to make.
Makes sense.
So Ramona, let me see if this, what I did, I added a comment in the general comments. Before these questions are asked, the nature of the change needs to be communicated and clarified. Would that address your?
Yes.
That's good. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
I've got to jump off to another meeting, you guys, but appreciate all the hard work. Kind of a cool way you can add things to this.
Yeah, so I will, after the call, I'm gonna email the instructions for how to do this, just so people are reminded, and there'll be a link to each one of these 5 pages. So if anybody wants to do that on their own time, we'll give it a week or so, or 10 days, whatever, so that we can collect these comments. So if we can collect the comments in the next week, then at the next bi-weekly meeting, we can process these comments and come back and discuss them. So maybe hopefully finalize it.
Right. And we're gonna do this for each component, so leadership and vision, and then each of, I think it's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not sure where my thing went, my spreadsheet. Yeah, there's 5 of them, and I showed the spreadsheet. I don't know where it went. Maybe I inadvertently.
It's in the cloud someplace. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. So this is the first one, leadership and vision. The next one is change process, employee skills and capacity, and then executing change, the process for change. So there's a page for each one of these. In case there's comments that were here have already been implemented. I'll be right off. I'll be right back. I have to turn the heat down in the house.
These are great comments. What's really good is that with this feedback, it's going to become the assessment tool that you created. It's not going to be some canned thing that exists that doesn't apply to our situation and that wouldn't be consistent with the rest of the assessment tools that we have. So this will sync up with the methodology that we have and so forth. So it's a positive step forward.
Wow, we're getting
people are getting the hang of it here.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We would wind up having, just like in the workforce and organizational culture, we would have the 1 through 5 scale, like you strongly disagree to strongly agree. We'd have analytics that would take this information and produce a dashboard associated with it, and it would allow you to deal with the weaknesses that are identified in your readiness to implement change. So that would be something that the change team or the would deal with too.
And please be bold. So you don't have to use the word maybe. You can just say, we need to clarify this statement. And the more specific you are, it'll be easier for us to make the changes and implement the comments. So even if you want to say, I don't like it, that's good. But this would be better, or this is why I don't like it, would make it a little easier for us to consolidate it. Understand everybody wants to be polite and courteous, but this is no time for politeness.
So we could modify this based on the feedback, and then questions that arise, you know, we can get back to.
Cello, I just added in the general notes, maybe we need to, for utilities that may be interested in using this, we would have to roll it out with a guidance document for how to
Yes.
implement
Great
this.
comment. Great
So
comment.
That's it. That's exactly the kind of comment that's helpful. The most helpful comment is one that gives us homework.
Mhm.
And you know, if it just puts us into like an existential crisis, it's not as useful. It, you know, at least not in the short run. And if your thing is, if your comment is a little smaller now, don't worry about it. We'll blow it up when we, we'll make it bigger when we look at it. So as long as it fits in the right place, it's good. I will. Does anybody claim this thing that says this is a title, or can I kill it?
Which one?
The one that says this is a title in 1.7.
Oh,
I think that it's just maybe, you know, something that
Either dropped or not finished.
yeah. So maybe, anyway, I thought maybe it was by accident. Anybody mind if I delete this one?
No.
Okay. This is an empty one. Sometimes it happens, empty ones. If you double click on the canvas, it will give you a yellow sticky. So I'll assume since it's empty, it doesn't say anything, that I can clean it up. So I'm going to be sort of the cleaning lady.
without seeing the other pages, I'd say vision seems more like a leadership component, which fits into this page. And then you have, like you said, there's some other specific pages for either strategies or plans, but do you want more detail about a vision on this one, or is it make more sense?
You know, just add it here. And if it needs to be, let me just show you what the categories are. The first category is just leadership and vision. The second one is communication with stakeholders. The third one is the change process itself, such as, you know, the current approach to change will work well in this organization. The fourth one is employee skills and capacity, like necessary resources are in place to effectively implement the change. The existing job descriptions will support the change. And then it's about the execution. Employees are encouraged to provide constructive feedback. Barriers to successful change have been identified and addressed, and stuff like that. So those are the five. And if the consensus will be that we need another category, we can always add it. It's totally open, but these are the five that we have right now. So there's a page for each one of them. Just physically, it's difficult to have, you know, so many different boxes on a single mural page. So it wouldn't, you know, be enough room.
Ramona, did you want to try to do a second one, or do you want to discuss this one now, or what's your pleasure?
I think if we can discuss this one, before we move to the next one, that would be great. Because then I think the next one will be easier for us to gather the data.
Sure.
Now, unless someone thinks that, you know, I'm open to, someone says, no, let's get it all and then have a discussion, that's fine too. You know, but I think if we discuss it, it'll help us.
So did you want then to look at these one by one then? We just kind of
Yeah,
blow
let's go through
blow
each
them up
one.
a little
You know,
bit?
let's look at 1.1 and see, okay, are we good with it? Do we have suggestions for change? Because I think sometimes we think through it and we don't put it on a sticky note. From my last experience using this. And then as we talk about it, it's yeah, you know what, let's add that as a sticky note as we discuss it.
Sure.
And then by the second one, folks stop being shy with their comments and can, you know, will more likely say, oh, okay, it's more like permission to be brutal.
Yeah.
So if you zoom in, Cello, on the first one then, and so people can read it, and there you go.
So does anybody mind if I delete the empty ones, because they're probably like detritus from stuff? Is that okay? So we have more room, so I can make like this one a little bigger. So let's look at the 1.1 and 1.2. I'm going to take this one also. If I'm deleting something that you just created, just, you know, slap my hand. Oops. Slap my hand. Can you see this clearly on your screen? Is it big enough?
Yep.
Okay. So does this vision align with the organization's strategic plan? We originally had questions about that, but and I don't mind. So what do people feel? Do they feel? Do you guys think that we should ask something about that? How do we ask it? Because if we just ask them, does the vision align with the organization's strategic plan? We can handle it in a couple of ways. We can say, because we don't, if we say agree or strongly agree or disagree, we don't really find out whether this strategic plan exists, whether the person knows about it and stuff like that. So let's have some ideas. How should we deal with that one?
Can I ask
one question? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm new to utilities, but since I've been at the utility that I am in, they have not, initially they did not want or even feel the need to have a strategic plan. And so I don't know if that is normal. Is that what you guys have experienced being in a utility? They're slowly getting to where they want us to at least have some type of goals and strategic goals. But to have a real plan, what I'm accustomed to from previous work experiences, no, we do not have a strategic plan. And I don't know if that's just my organization or is that pretty standard across water utility.
It's kind of a mixed, it's kind of a mixed bag, but you know, one comment, and it's kind of a question, but is that the place that the change was identified from often have basically assessment questions related to a strategic plan. So one question is whether you need to have it here or whether it's already covered by the improvement team that had identified the change that was needed in the first place. I mean, that's just kind of a question, but we could.
You know, I would say we probably need to ask that question. Are you aware of your organization's strategic plan, or does your organization have a strategic plan?
Mhm.
Because that speaks to whether you're ready for an assessment or not. Because if you don't have a strategic plan, do you have a direction?
Correct.
You know,
Yeah, because when I first heard that, oh no, we don't, I thought that was very strange, because how can you know where you're going if you don't have some type of plan, a roadmap or something? So I don't know. I think that should be asked for sure, because I got a sneaky feeling our organization is not the only one that doesn't have one, and maybe don't even see the need to have one.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that before you can do any kind of change in the whole organization that you've got to go develop a strategic plan first. You could still have a vision for a needed change that you've agreed on, and get the right people together and implement the change too. So you don't want to say that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say if there is a strategic plan and it does not align, then you might have a lot more friction than you'd like trying to implement it.
Sure. So
Yeah,
if you have a strategic plan, Deborah, does this align, or something like that?
I think that's a better way to put it.
I also think we should suggest that they make one, because in my world, you need some kind of plan, because if you don't plan, you're going to fail somewhere along the line. So whether you call it a strategic plan, a roadmap, SMART goals, or something, we need to establish, you need to plan as an organization where you're going, how you're going to maneuver, how you're going to adapt change, how you're going to grow and stay. I think without a plan, we're setting ourselves up for confusion down the road. So I think we should suggest, hey, if you don't have one, we strongly suggest you get one, some type of plan.
Okay.
So in addition to a strategic plan, I think it could also be a policy, right? For instance, about quality, if your quality policy describes that you have to implement change or continual improvement, that could also be another way, another document that could support the change.
Yeah. But I just think it needs to be written, because, when you don't write your goals, your plan, an organization can get off. I mean, you need to have those type of things documented so everybody can be in some type of alignment, so that you can move and be flexible and adapt to change as it's coming.
That is correct. And these questions are entirely appropriate, and like Scott said, it makes the question is, where do we ask these questions?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you we used to have these two questions in the survey. Do you have a strategic plan? Are you aware of what the strategic plan contains and what metrics and stuff like that? And I can't remember which. Do you remember, Scott, which survey, which tool it was? Whether it was for processes and for. I think it was for processes originally. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we had it in both. That and workforce. I think we can wordsmith it later, maybe, Ramona. But I think what we're saying is, do you have is this aligned with or this change is aligned with the strategic plan or other organizational guidance documents or plans? Something like that is what you're saying.
But Deborah, my concern is that, let's say that I don't think it's going I don't think it's a terrible assumption that a number of water sector utilities that has the kind of strategic plan that you're used to is probably not very big.
Right.
But it probably, we don't want to have a question, okay, if you don't have a strategic plan, you shouldn't be implementing your new, procurement system. Well, go do this, because we can still make improvements if we have the metrics and if we have an approach that is scalable, that can scale up, so we don't try to change everything. The fact that organizations don't sometimes or often don't have a strategic plan, there's a reason why they don't. And that means that we may try to boil the ocean if we put in principle, this is a very valid point. But to tell people, okay, go first, do the strategic plan, it may not, because it's a big effort and it would take everybody, but all they wanted to do is, improve their inspection of pump stations or something like that.
Yeah, but what we wind up with when we do the strongly agree to strongly disagree, it would highlight, let's say, if you don't have one and you could decide what you want to do about that. It's not saying that it's actually required. It's up to the the change team or the, people involved with the change to decide, is there something out of line that needs to be addressed? And that could be even a separate action, but
Scott?
It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, you're on the right track. So what if we ask the question, do you have does the utility operate with a strategic plan? It's a yes or no. It's a 1 or a 5 or something like that. And then maybe your follow-up question is there a interest with the utility to pursue one in the future? What the 1 to 5 scale? What's that?
Or do you have plans to correct?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Right, exactly.
And I hate to beat this up, but to me, I've seen it happen at our organization. When you do something in the vacuum, then it's like, once stuff starts in other areas, you see that you probably should have had a plan so everything is cohesive. So like with us, we'll buy a lot of software and then it's like you're disjoined because this group got this software, this one isn't half talking to that one. So now you got to create something and so to me, I'm a planner person, and I think we should try to encourage them to plan so you won't have this disjoint silo kind of band-aid situation as the organization is moving and growing. It just, to me, it seems like we go backwards when we don't plan, and then it's like, oh, we got to go back now and fix it or stumble along for so long until we realize we should have planned.
Maybe this will help.
Yeah,
it's a good point. The question is, where does that belong to? Mm. So this is the process that if an organization wants to make an improvement, the question is first, what is it that they want to improve? So maybe all they are interested is organization and workforce. So they would do some planning, and we have done a lot of work, and Ramona knows it, over the past year and a half on developing a maturity model and an assessment tool that looks at organizational culture. And it will give you, for example, dashboards like saying, where are you in these categories, like organizational strategy and performance. And if you look at, the organization's goals, targets, and key performance indicators are transparent, broadly communicated, and understood. My own goals and targets are well defined. I know how my work relates to the organization. So we have that, part of it. So the other thing is, if your improvement has to do with a process, you would first have to select a process. And then we have a method to look at the maturity of the process itself, which says, is it complicated or simple? Is it critically important or not that important? Is it not documented or documented? So, and then your goals and perform, have these goals been defined, not defined at all, or well defined? Whether metrics and measurements are weak or strong, where are you? So we do have a comprehensive sort of 360 view of the so change management goes around and would get all the input from all these other things. So on this side, you would see maturity of the, on documentation, needs and goals, metrics, performance measurements, and the complexity. You could see that, and you could also see what your technology is like. Are you collecting the data you need? Are you managing it properly? Are you do you have analytical tools in place? Do you have decision support or automation goals defined? And then all this on the left side are similar maturity models and tools that say organizational values, strategy, and performance. So change management doesn't will have the benefit of getting these results, but it will have its own method for dealing and leveraging these results. Because if somebody tells you, let's say you need to, let me just play this, oh shoot, hang on just a second. If somebody says you need to improve the decision support system, well, okay, that's job for the technology people. But then you see that the business process is not well documented, that it's complex and the impact of failure is significant. You find out that you don't have the data, it's not being collected. You find out that employee engagement is low, and you find out that the teamwork from this survey is at low level of maturity. So this kind of information can be useful for change management. And so we don't necessarily have to solve all these things strictly just within, this survey. Does that make any sense? Does this help, Deborah, at all?
Yes.
Yeah, so with this, we're trying to say, okay, we selected procurement. Okay, so it'll be we used to have these questions, so and I indicated here, add a couple of questions about strategic plan. Does it exist and are people aware of it? Not problem at all. So we definitely can do that. I'm just saying that there are many things. What I'm saying, we're trying to kind of.
Yeah, I think it really helps when you just mention procurement, because that's a kind of if you're saying we want to improve our procurement process, we want to, and we've identified where we're strong and weak on that. And now we want to implement the changes that we've identified. Now we're going back, well, do we have a common vision and a compelling rationale for the change that we're proposing to do, is what it says. Now we could add something additional about, is this aligned with a strategic plan or the budget or whatever? We could do that. Presumably they've kind of covered that already, I think, is what Cello was kind of saying, if they use the assessment tool for the business process. Anyway, that we've only talked about 1.1 here, Ramona.
Well, these are the ones that we end up having. These are the conversations that help us to understand.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How these questions impact. Yep. So I'm not surprised that we've only been able to discuss one.
Yep.
But I hope if everyone kind of gets a feel for how looking at these questions really impact what we're trying to do.
Right.
So I think if we send out the link for all of the other pages, and then we can gather that data, and then it gives us homework for future meetings so that we can go through each of these. And I know Kezra knows, we started with over 400 comments.
Yeah.
And had to whittle them down. So please don't be afraid to be brutal. You know, if it doesn't make sense, say, this doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
Why?
that is critical. That's absolutely critical. And we're at the end of our designated time. And I think the fact that there was so much interaction and discussion is a sign that we're doing the right thing. Because we want people to own these things and to before they implement them. So they you know, this is not, I mean, this is going to be a lot more effective if we get more input. So I will send out a document that will give you some instructions of instructions about how to move these things around. But I think most people are getting the hang of it. And then also links to the other 4 pages. I may make some of these a little bit smaller, just so there's room for more, more comments. But I'm not going to change any content. And if it's an empty thing, I may remove it, and then you can just but nothing that has words in it. So let me just, sorry, Scott.
No, well, we are running out of time, but I think you will see that some